our first live audience podcast.
I know.
It's very exciting.
Very impressive audience. It's like you curated them.
I
handpicked all those
Yes.
knitters from all over the world.
Well, welcome. We are doing a fireside chat / live podcast here, so we are recording this. I'm Carmen, and I run a yarn story, and this is our bath luxury knitting retreat. And today I have Erika Knight with me.
Cool. And thank you so much for having. What a joy.
It's lovely here,
What a
isn't
joy
it?
to come here and see you in person. Usually it's in Germany or somewhere else on
Yes,
work.
and very quick, brief
yes,
encounters.
yes. Yeah. But this is fantastic.
But for the last year, it's been lovely and on Zoom, and we've gotten to work together, which is...
It's been lovely. It's been a joy.
Yes.
Absolute joy.
Well, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit to those who may not know who you are? Also, 'cause we'll have,
I'm sure they don't.
I'm sure that's not true.
My name is Erika Knight, and for my sins, possibly I have been a knitter for most of my life, and crocheter. And I think I was always known as that kid, with the stuff all around their chest. It's a bit like we do immediately. So, and I never really knew what I would do. And I was talking at dinner about that, where you don't really know where you're gonna do. And I went to art school. I knew I wanted to do something creative. I had all this stuff around. I didn't have the outlet. And I think my parents knew long before I did that the world wasn't waiting for another second-rate painter. It took me a lot longer to get But I worked in print studios, and I worked in, used to festoon, and if any of you have ever done silkscreen printing, festooning and drying for Vivienne Westwood when I was a student and stuff. And I loved the job. I just loved creating. But through various opportunities, I now find here, at this age, I have been an author of possibly 25 knitting and crochet books.
That is no small amount.
That have, I apologise for anybody. That have been translated into many languages, which is nice, because my ethos, I think, really is, we all should knit and crochet. It's a saving of the soul, and I've been very lucky to have had a career in knitwear. But for many years, I was in the fashion industry, and one of my first jobs wasn't my call, but was to lay off 2,500 people in a mill, in a factory on the borders outside Edinburgh. And I never got over that. And that defined, I think, me as a designer, because I design knitwear and I write patterns and things. So I'm very big into sustainability of fibers. I'm really believe as a community we help each other, and that's been amazing. And I think really the industry, our industry, it is an industry when, like Carmen,
very much an industry.
It's an industry. We have the answers for the fashion industry. And so I believe in full circular design. We use the best fibers we can. We knit with love and with patience. Sometimes not so patient. We rip that one out again. Oh God, she's talking now. Oh God, now I've got that. But for the most part, it keeps us calm. It keeps us on the right track. I don't know what I do without it. But I'm always inspired. And I'm inspired by people, and certainly tonight, and certainly this retreat, and certainly Carmen. And Beverly and the team. Yeah. And we'll move mountains.
We're gonna try
We'll make differences.
We will.
So that's really probably it's been it's been a great career, and I think what I want is that people with a very humble, ordinary type of thing that we do, I mean, has afforded me a career in this, and my daughter has been working with me, Arabella, for the last 11 years. We were trying to decide, weren't we? So yeah, we were out to change things and have fun. Yeah.
You are changing things. You change things all the time.
Try to, don't we?
Well,
yeah.
You know, it's all we can do.
Yes, all we can do.
Your career started with quite a low there, laying off 2,500 people.
Yeah.
You clearly took that as inspiration to do better or to do something else.
I taught me a lesson as a designer. I mean, it's not about the airy-fairy stuff. I fight that in the industry. Oh, you know, love, you're going to have to order 3 kilos of yarn. You know, that gets wearing. That gets very wearing. But if you don't get your job right, you know, things don't go right in the factory. It's a chain, and that was during the 90s, and when the high streets were going to China and the Far East for cheaper goods. So, you know, we constantly have to reinvent ourselves, and
yes, we do.
As I said, people call you a designer, there is repercussions, and you have to do your job right.
Yeah, and there is more to it than just having a good pattern idea. Or like a pretty sweater.
Yeah. You know, I was sitting with Heather today, who I've just met, and I was saying to her, you come to something like this, and I think it is sometimes things call out to you, you know, and it's a timing. You meet someone in our industry, or, you know, or in a yarn shop, or you just meet them in an airport because they're knitting, aren't you? You think that's safe, I can go and sit with them, you know. And we're a good community and we help each other. And I think that's, mostly they're good people who knit.
Absolutely.
You know, probably not the ones who not sell yarn your side. I don't mean that, you know, but it's the industry can be cutthroat, and as designers, you have to stand up and not be airy-fairy and make it count.
Yeah.
I think that's a big lesson I've learned.
Savvy.
You have to be commercially savvy.
And I think, you know, it was H&H this weekend, whereas actually that's where you and I first met.
We did.
Which is the European trade show in Cologne. And that was this past weekend. And it is amazing to me. There's a whole side of the industry that most of my customers don't know about, and it's the side that's run by men in dark suits who don't know anything about anything. They could be selling absolutely anything. And some of them might go from trade show to trade show. They sell, I don't know, widgets at one and yarn at another. And it was very weird the first time I went there and realized that. Because that wasn't
it's just a bit disappointing.
It is.
Because, you know, we'll all go, I guarantee we'll go and go, oh my God, oh God, I have to, you know, and stuff. But it is nice because you go there. There's, and before that show, there's a wonderful show in Italy. Some of you may have been in Florence. Oh, it's not bad, a yarn show, and it's in Florence. What could go wrong, you know? But I've been attending that for 40 years, and it's yarns and fibres that you think, God, that could be interesting. So for much of my life, I have designed yarns. So if Marks and Spencer, you know, they have seen a beautiful thing at Max Mara or something, but they want it for $19.99 or $39. You have to replicate yarns, or, you know, somebody's looking for something to do this job, and there's not enough people going into that part of the industry actually. But it's fascinating. You know, we were talking earlier about, you know, whether it's, you know, suri, you know, alpaca, or whether, you know, it's where the kid silk mohair. You know, what do? You oscillate between the two, you know. But
and what we see in hand knitting plays into what we see in ready to wear, and, you know, who's buying up which fibers and how expensive our hand knitting yarns become is completely tied into how expensive they are, or how in demand they are for ready to wear.
And certainly over the years, you see, I mean, we've just done a thing about the 80s and stuff, but, you know, mohair was king in the 80s, you know. Yeah, how many of you have got those 8? Yeah. You know, get them out.
They're back.
Prize. They're back. You know now, but it is amazing what yarns come in and out of fashion.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now it's just such a rich tapestry, really. And,
there's a lot out there, which
yeah,
is really nice.
yeah.
Plenty to be creative with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we talk about the collection specifically?
Let's talk about the collection because it was lovely how that came about. It's just sort of an organic way that we're talking about it and your beautiful yarn origin.
Yes.
You know?
Well, and you know, we'd been talking for quite a while before we got together, and I think that's always important too. Is that the timing has to be right, and
in everything.
When you force things, it doesn't go well. So so we talked about which yarn to use, and you chose Origin, and I also wanted a collection in Origin because I felt like it as a yarn was a little bit unloved, even though it's my favorite of our yarns. And worsted weight in this country isn't really a thing.
But I do love a worsted weight.
Yeah?
I love it. It's just, for me, it's just the right sort of, just the right gauge, I think.
It's very popular in North America, just, you know, the UK is not quite into worsted yet. So that was my role in it, really, and then I sat back.
Yeah, but then you got me, you know, the colours on going, well, what's not to love? We've got beaver's den and fireweed and, you know, what else do we have? Lighthouse. You know, just so evocative. What, you know, it's a gift, isn't it? Somebody hands you a gift like that, you know, in the morning and you say, wow, no, that's cool. So it was fun, absolutely fun, you know, of the colours. It's sort of nice, you know, where just to have like one yarn in all these colours and knowing you and knowing how you do, you light up the place with your inspiration and your presence and everything you bring. And we know this yarn story. But so it was lovely, and to do that just so it's not, you know, it's a huge responsibility as well doing something like that. We knew of your love of Taylor Swift, you know, and
I have no idea what you're talking about.
But then I thought these colours, they're beautiful colours. There's such a density to it, and so I put this little scarf on because this is. I've got a friend in St Leonard's who collects antique scarves. Oh, wait, it sells them. And this was a little silk one. And as you can see,
I can very much see.
That might just be. So for
where
me,
that came from.
it was a starting point, you know. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, to be fair, I do live across the sea in St Leonard's, and I see the sea all the time. And very often, it's a rock. It can be a rock. It can be. You don't know where you find something. And I was talking to my friend John, who's an amazing designer, and I just, oh my God, I think these colours. And I sort of, you know, the way this is just, I love scarves, and this, when it's silk as well, you know, but you've just got to move this in your hands, and all these shapes sort of come. And Intarsia is very big again. Those of you who own the 80s sweater, you'll be very, well, I don't know whether we would be glad. Hands up anybody who does like Intarsia. Anybody doing it? Well, it's back. Sorry about that. It's back.
And it's good fun, and Amanda's going to teach you it on Wednesday.
Yeah. Amanda, where are you? Yes. So, I love it. I did so much of it. And, but, so that was a lovely piece, you know, to have busy. And then, and of course, you've got to think, and I think, everybody can design a sweater, you know, and you can put as much as you want onto a chart. And now we've got Stitch Fiddle and on all these sort of programs, it's so much easier. You know, back in the day, those of you who were with me back in the 80s, it was always done on chart paper, but it was the wrong gauge, wasn't it? And you had to, you know, do your brain in because the sweater would look like that. And now, of course, we've got chart papers. There's lots of different ways of doing this. I like to start with doing designs to get the scale, and I'll either work on a dummy or I'll work on the floor and I'll scribble over a white table. Always start with a white table. It doesn't end up white, that's for sure. Isn't it amazing how I always think being a designer gives you piles? It's a dreadful thing. But you get piles of this and piles of that, then you get piles when you're chair and piles on your table. And by the time you've collated all the things you want to put in that, then it's about, just subtracting stuff away from it. So it's a complex process, if you like. But the mechanics of doing a sweater like that too is that I wanted to keep the backs, and they're not, it's not an easy knit, There's a lot of bobbins going along there. You're tethered to the armchair for the weekend. People bring you copious amounts of cups of coffee, because you can't move. Yeah. But the chart has to fit, so the sleeves charts fit inside the other ones, and it can be replicated. Because it's no good doing the best design in the world if you can't make it a recipe for someone else to be able to work from. So, I don't know, and why do a plain rib? We were watching some knitters the other week, and I was like, why are you doing that plain rib? Why wouldn't you tip it? Or so I rip out more often than not, because I can't just do, then I go, oh, should I just do a tip? Oh, no, I'll rip that out. Oh, shall I just, maybe I could just colour block that, I could do that. And now I'm a very asymmetric, it really annoys people around my house. They're forever moving things on the fireplace. But I quite like a little glimpse of colour or something. Anyway, so I think it's now called Date Night.
Yes, because it will turn heads.
It will, oh, that's where I've been going wrong. Amanda, I need your course. I'll come and do the sweater.
I think this is my favorite piece of the collection. Because there were more designs to choose from, but we had to whittle it down. And I was like, is anyone else gonna like it? I don't care. It's my favorite. But there are 7 colors in here. Can you talk to me about how you get the balance and the colors to work like this? Because this is artwork. It's not that easy to take 7 colors and go, they will look amazing together.
Well, your palette was lovely. I think there's another blue to go in and another one we thought that can be added in, which is lovely. But it's quite nice when you have a limited palette, but it is quite, I think we've always prided ourselves, I always like that you can go into a yarn shop too, and with your eyes closed, you can, to me, a colour palette should work like that. With your eyes closed, anybody can come in and choose colours, and it will work together. You can trust that company that they've done that, or that
test that out in the shop
designer.
this week, ladies.
I had a friend who had a shop in Pennsylvania, and she was lovely retailer, but she'd always say, people would come in, customer come in, an hour she'd spend with them doing the colours, and she'd go, it's a sweater, it's not a tattoo, But, and I can procrastinate. I can make faffing and a sport, really. But I think with those colours, and I suppose odd numbers work. I think that's that rule of 3 sometimes. But I wanted it to be sort of if you're going to do colour work, you want it to be fairly adventurous.
This is adventurous.
Many of you might know the British designer Kay Fassett, who's he also lives along the road from me, but he's a master of colour, and he will never use white in a garment. I think if you look back on this, very, very seldom does he put white in, because it will grin at you. It just grins at you. But I wanted to use the white. It's called Lighthouse. What a fabulous name for this yarn. And it's a good white. It's not an optic white or whatever.
I feel like you're someone who will pick a color based on the name, even if the color.
One of our best ones was called Steve, wasn't it? Everybody said, why is that yarn called Steve? Why not? Because everybody asks you about it as well, And it's most fun you get on a wet Wednesday afternoon is naming colours as well, basically. We've had a few, haven't we? But, and I think here you can see to get the balance right of white, is it here, smidgen here. So it's about percentages, but you've got to have your darks and how dark you're going, and the lighter you're going, and the tones in between, obviously, and then the pop. It was important to have the pop. If you hadn't had fireweed, do you know what I mean? It's a bit ho-hum. But then you throw in that sort of pop, and you know, it's a brilliant pop fireweed.
I mean, it's got quite a bit of orange in it, and yet I would still wear this colorway.
I like orange.
I don't.
You don't?
It's a whole thing. No.
Okay. So you don't like an orange front door or anything? Or an orange car?
Not really, no.
Oh, okay.
But this has enough, I think it's the fireweed. I would wear this still, because...
I should have brought it down. I didn't burn it down, the other colourway. I did another colourway for you.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we get to do that
7
tomorrow
colours.
then.
I'll show you it tomorrow.
Okay. Which one shall we talk about now? So that was your starting point with your scarf.
That was my starting point with this scarf, of just moving that around and just, and I wanted to put circles. I was sort of into circles at the moment. Maybe I'll talk about this moss stitch, the humble moss stitch.
The not so humble.
Well, the seed stitch. Now, you know, it's probably one of my favourite stitches. You know, it's, you know, you get it in every row. You know, because I'm always, I do nod off. You know, it's dreadful at my age, but I do nod off. And you know, you have to back wind the TV, you have to back wind your yarn, don't you, and what have you. But it is great if you always cast on an odd number of stitches. You always start with a knit one, don't you? So it's really good. It's a great stitch, great stitch for texture, and it's a favourite stitch.
I love this design process.
So, and I just love the colour changes, and I love blips, what I call blip stitches, when you do colour change. And I know things we're not. They say there are rules in knitting. There are no rules. You make it up as you go along. But so many people have taken up weaving, probably for the first time since the 30s, when there was an exhibition here, Vanny Albers from the Bauhaus. And the popularity after that, we saw a huge rise in that. And where I always live in Brighton and St Leonard's, but this weaving and texture gets it for me, you know. So the humble moss stitch, I just love, you can put one row in. I'm a great one for odd rows. People hate it when they're reading a pattern, but because you've always got the ends the other way, on the other side. But when it's done, and the colours of Carmen's yarns of Origin, this deep Beavesden, it's just beautiful, this deep, rich, bluey sort of brown, and put in navy with it, and quite undiscernible colours, but then it just looks woven. So it's a really simple, it's sort of, you know, that straight, I use the word as kimono-esque, you know, but it's just rectangles. And the first book I ever did was you would know, maybe you would know Rowan yarns from, I've been working and designing yarns for them probably 40 at least 40 years. And Stephen Sheard, I was having a conversation with him one day. He was having to go to book publishers, and he said, oh, you know, everybody's just gardening and cooking. Nobody wants craft books anymore. And I said, well, I've had an idea. I just want people to knit. The joy of just knitting, they just knit. And it's all based around squares. You know, as my sister-in-law would say, oh, but I don't know how to go around corners in knitting. You know, it's like, and the squares and oblongs, they just work, and they really work in moss stitch. So this unashamedly is about the rectangles, if you like, that will just drape. And then you learn about, oh, I need that shoulder to have a bit more shape in it, or structure, or I want this to be this. So that's your first premise, and you can do that. And it's knitted in sections to echo woven. It's really, really simple. It's a great one if you've got oddments of yarns and
I mean, you've made it look like weaving with literally just 2 rows.
So it's just really 2 rows. It's just getting dark colours and the balance of single row and 2 row stripes. And then it's
remarkably simple.
3 sections on the back, which you can do on the train. I'm only ever really knitting on trains now. And 2 on the front. And then a scarf, which is just doubled over. But it is quite flexible. So it's a take on a poncho, really.
Yeah. but one that fits under your coat.
Yeah, and
I
you've
hate
called
that
it.
in coat sleeves.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Getting all that.
Yeah, see, but that's not a problem here.
No, you can't. And that's called theatre wrap.
Theatre wrap, yes.
Yeah, I love that name again.
I just had a vision of, well, actually, I had a vision of my mom going to the theatre, wearing it.
Yeah.
Just, at the Halt Center back in Eugene.
You sort of feel done up, but not.
Yes. But
and
it's
not
also
too hot. I think it was
cozy.
nice. Yeah.
And could easily be worn over my sweatpants at home. It's like wearing a blanket. It's very versatile.
Yeah. Oh well. And the woven stitches, I just love all the stab stitching. So, it's easy to keep a line in. Apart from I did see on my Instagram there was one I thought, I missed one there.
We don't point things like that out.
But you go, doesn't your eye go? Are any of you the same? You immediately go to the stitch you missed. But do you go back? You don't love it. Do you go back? You don't. Do you go back? Yes. It's a thing, isn't it? You know it's there. You have to go back.
And we all like to point them out to each other.
Yeah. Why do we do that?
I don't know, but it irritates me to no end in the shop. Someone's come in and gone, I'm like, oh my God, that looks amazing. You finish, oh yes, but.
But.
No.
Yeah.
No, it looks amazing. Yeah. That is the end of the story.
That's right. Yeah.
We should celebrate all the things that went right.
Yeah.
That it looks amazing. Yeah. Not the one stitch.
Not the one stitch.
Yeah.
Somebody said that to me tonight. It's Cindy. What wasn't you?
Now you're going to call people out. I won't call anyone out. Okay, which one shall we?
Well, the plain. Let's go with the plain, but not so plain, if you like.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's this?
The one I'm wearing. Long weekend.
Long weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, it is a long weekend. I mean, I think if you're gonna just do a sweater, it should be. Well, I believe knitwear is your soft armor. We were talking about this morning. When somebody commented on my jewelry, and I said, well, yeah, it's sort of armor, isn't it? You put your stuff on, and somebody else said, sometimes it's your underwear. You got that. You feel it's you. You know what I mean? You're charged for the day. But I've always thought why I like knitwear is because it's soft armor. You wear it and you feel good to go. You're comfortable, and it's going to be about your day. If you're wearing something that you've made as well yourself, then people, will compliment you or say something, and it just sets you up. Or yourself, and we had another conversation tonight about, you always go, oh, that's lovely. Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's nice. And and I note to myself, Erika, do not do it to people in lifts. Too close. Just move away, But we're very tactile as people. But I think if it's the best yarn that, you can afford at the time or what you're doing, it's to make something that lives your life. And for me, although you can see I'm not even wearing any knitwear tonight, but it's about plain pieces that work for you. And again, it's got to be something, if you've taken all that time, it's got to be something that you're going to live with, or you're going to make another one of them, or one for your best mate, and it's got to give you enough interest. Yeah. So obviously it's top down, but it's just got, done in sections. It's really simple. I do like back shaping. I was for many years in the fashion industry, and I just like things which we would call fully fashioned, sort of some couture finishing technique that make it fit. So, it's accenting the best bits about yourself. We're three-dimensional, but I find design can be very two-dimensional. It's about paper. Fashion students always draw, it's two-dimensional. I want to know what the back is doing. How does that fit on my shoulder? Or, the neck. The best part is to show the clavicle here. It's very elegant. Or as you get older, and the sleeves. It's important. I really like a bracelet-like sleeve, or, you wear bracelets or rings. Mm-hmm. So if I was doing a plain sweater, it's got to have a lot of things that are going to make that person feel good, accent the best bits. So obviously you can make it whatever length you want, of course, by its structure, but it gives you enough interest of it picking up with the seam. I love seam, and I love an outside seam. But it just gives you enough difference. Or you could cable that, you know, those stitches. Or I do love those flat cables where you've got this sort of tram line and then a little twist. I kept thinking, why didn't I do that? Would have echoed the other design. But then it's got a balloon sleeve with just gathered in. So you've just got that detail. But this one, instead of just gathering in, it's shaped
this
and
has gotten
fully
a lot
fashioned
of
in.
compliments.
Oh, good.
There's a couple of people who've finished this sweater already, and they've all commented on how clever and beautiful the stitching.
Well,
on the sleeve is.
I've used the technique before because I love shaping on sleeves. I just love shaping. Back in the day, I worked in Italy for many years. I was known as a menswear designer, really, but and I could write, thesis on a man's polo shirt, a beautiful, fine, a 230s yarn in a, beautiful Italian merino.
I love that.
And the smile, it's not often I can confess that in an audience, in a room, but it's details. So,
I mean, this sweater, so I'm wearing long weekend, and I have not felt this good in a piece of clothing in a very long time. It just absolutely...
Well, you do rock it, Carmen, I have to say.
But I'll be honest, I was like, I'm not sure I can rock a balloon sleeve, but I'm going to wear the sweater, and I am in love with it, and I do want it in more colors, and I have gotten so many compliments on it, not just from knitters, every time I've worn it. So, and I think it's remarkable how well the shoulder fits with this one little tiny seam across the back.
I just
it keeps it from just sagging.
That's the thing, because a lot of sweaters will kick back, won't they? And a lot of people still don't do back necks, and it is better where we've got this mix of continental influences and whatever, and you get that. You just need a bit of a back neck shape. So anyway, but it's but when your colours are so sort of statement colours, it's what colour to choose.
Do you like a statement color? Yes. This one we shouldn't really show off because we're sold out of it at the moment.
What's the lime colour called? The limey colour?
Dune grass.
Dune grass, yes.
Laylee just finished.
Because I do like the dune grass. Yes.
She's done this in dune grass.
Because I think that's a real good neutral.
I love that.
I know. It is. We had that a few years ago with that colour, sort of ochre. Do you remember that ochre? I never go, I couldn't wear that. And you realise that colour, sort of this colour, and it goes with everything. It's a great neutral. But this June grass is the same. You can you can put it with everything. It's fabulous.
Lime green is a neutral, everyone.
Yeah, but it's fabulous when you have that with, a black or a brown or a grey, and then these two hot colours with it. Fabulous. Yeah.
Should we talk about the shawl since I'm holding it?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm not a great shawl knitter, I have to say, but I do love, and I've been seeing something. There's a lovely Stephen West one around too. I think that was in there with the and but I think the simplicity of the shawl is just lovely because we want to be dressed up with a scarf and a bit of colour. It's easy to get in the car and just put something on. I just love the function of clothing like that you can, but it's got to make you feel good as well. It's something you've made, and you can be moving on. I find so many people now are like knitting, but they say, but I haven't made a sweater yet. There's a whole new generation
We have
coming
someone
up.
here, and there you are.
There we are. Oh, challenge, brilliant, lovely. But it's so easy because it's just oblongs, just seeing a bit oblongs. And then you go, I put it on, I want it to do this. So we show you how to do that. Oh, and I want it to show you how to do that, see?
See?
And then
Super easy.
It's cool. Then you're smitten, then it becomes an obsession. And then you
It does become an obsession, yes.
So the slip stitching, I do love colour work. I'm a true Gemini. I'm known for doing one colour, just one colour. And the first book I ever did, the publishers had said to me, this was the thing about the squares. And I said, I just want people to know it's about in, over, under, off. It's a stitch. You make a series of stitches, it's a row. make a series of rows, and you've got fabric. How cool is that? It's quite primeval, you know, to do. And then it's all a variation of that. And they said to me, oh yeah, but we've got to have red on the front cover. I said, well, I don't do red. I can't, I don't think I do red or whatever. Anyway, I did this book it was ecru, why ecru, charcoal and carbon. That's right, yeah, so it's whites, ecrus, this indigo-y and greys, you know. And they said, well, anyway, so I'm here to say, they said to me, oh, it will look like rice pudding. But I said, well, you know, I've made a career of rice pudding. But I'm a real Gemini. I can take it, I can absolutely pinpoint it when I was at art school, and my hero, one of my heroes was Frank Stella. And I just loved all the colour and the geometry of that. And we had things then called repeatographs, and we'd be doing these complicated, it was 64 colour silk screen, and then I was having to touch up line with it. And I thought, I think I want to go over the edges. I just had this sort of, it was all a bit stiff and neat. And then I decided to take all colour out of my work, if you like, and just start with white and the tones, and then I got heavily into Robert Ryman, who I don't know. But anyway, it's all about textures and white. And I feel this dichotomy now. So I'm a real Gemini, and I think I can either do all one colour or up at 7 colours or 64 colours in there. Not like Kay, he'll do 64 colours. But so
we got 5 in this one.
So we've got 5 in this one. But the techniques of putting colour in your knitting are just phenomenal, and the options are just varied and wonderful. And it's always a bit daunting when you start and joining in ends and stuff. And there's lots of quick hacks that we'll talk about. But these are slip stitches. So intarsia is probably one of the most complicated techniques. I don't think we've got any stranding or whatever.
We don't.
We've been doing fair out for the last week. But this is slip stitching, so you've only ever got one colour going along a row. And I just love things that reverse. I love simple stitches that get exaggerated. You know, like if you do them on bigger needles and you suddenly, or crochet and suddenly, you know, a granny square looks, God, it looks like, we know these stitches. I don't know how many we carry. I was interested, how many stitches do you think you carry in your head?
Like 2.
Yeah,
like
that's
a knit
what
and a
I'd
pearl.
say. Yeah, you know, I'm surprised.
I can look up everything else.
Absolutely, which was sort of a conversation we were having the other day, and I thought, I still have to be reminded, you know, every time. I can't, but these are stitches which are 4-row stitches, most of them, on sort of the workshop. They're really 4-row stitch, 2-row repeat. And I think they're really cool for, I call them woolly Sudokus. These are my woolly Sudokus I've got concentrate on, or lace weights, lace sweaters. You've got to, please nobody talk to me while I'm counting, you know, because I can't count on this row, you know, and you've got all these lifelines put in and what have you. But these slip stitches, they put in colour so quickly, and reversing them out. So it's only then about colour choices. So they're very, very simple, but it's about creating textile, you know.
But yeah, there's a lot of texture in this.
It's so cool, isn't it? Out of 2 sticks and a continuous bit of stuff. You can clothe or make a fish. If you were left on an island, you could be...
You absolutely could.
Clothe yourself, find shelter, catch a fish, snare an animal, whatever. Don't know if I could cut it, but whatever. Anyway, but so this one, and it's just... so this is 4, I think this is 4 or 5 stitches. We've got the moss stitch in here again. But how does that look so different to that one? And that's just 2 rows, but it's just the colour is same. Loop stitch, slip stitch, and just reversing the colours. So it's...
There's some corrugated rib.
Yeah.
Or no, it's not.
It's like a corrugated rib. Yeah, just a bicolour rib. I love that. And they're so much nice. The stitch is nice because when you drape them around your neck, of course, you know, you just like... And then you've got the, you know, whichever way you do. You know, it's got a fold, hasn't it? I think that's what's nice about shawl. I mean, obviously Stephen West's a master, but, you know what I mean? It's like they've got to fall. They've got to be reverse stitches as well, haven't they? Which is nice. Yeah, it's cool. So lovely. Never done this before. It's cool.
And then we have. So which one of these came first?
Do you know? I don't know. The slip stitch came first because I just love putting colours in slip stitches. Do you know? I really don't know now.
That's okay.
This is just colour blocking. I think the challenge with that, obviously, with it, because working out, we were talking about pattern design before to make it, because obviously we make between 9 and 12 sizes now of everything. So it's finding, like the intarsia, that's got to work to, quite a large, to get everything in there. So, you don't want the charts to be so big and the repeats to be so big.
And you have to
so
get
it's
the
finding proportions and shapes that will, you can do intarsia in the round. I don't know if
we don't want to.
No, it's jeopardy too far.
Yeah.
But it is very hard.
Yes.
In small amounts, it's okay.
It's okay in a hat.
In a hat, yes, maybe, yes. Or socks, yes.
I mean, this one's fun too, because we've also seen a few people finish this or be almost done with it, and we've seen a lot of different color play.
Yeah, it's...
A few people have done like just a monochrome or a 2-color.
Nice.
Just for the body, and they've played with color
nice.
at the ribbing. Or done 2-color, just like a 3-color, so done one band of a pop.
But it's nice to, it's semi-fitted sleeve in here too. I think because it's quite nice to have a bit of structure to something, but
it does fit very well on the shoulder.
But I'd sort of now be tempted to sort of break into it a bit now as well with the colour. We're never satisfied, are we? Because we're on to the next one. It's like the second sock syndrome, isn't it?
Well,
really?
yeah. I've got first sock syndrome going on right now.
How is that sleeve constructed?
It's work from the bottom up, this one, but it's just a set-in sleeve. So a bit of shaping, but I always do my shaping. You guys do probably, I like to do a couple of stitches inside the seam, so that you can get them. I was saying to somebody again tonight, God, it's a rich conversations when you can absolutely obsess about knitting and talking about this stuff. But I do enjoy sewing up. I do like making up.
I think it's
find
good fun too.
Yeah,
it's very satisfying.
And also there are benefits and disadvantages of whatever construction, isn't it? Top down, you've got lots of benefits, of course, but then it's getting, structure. Sometimes sweaters need a bit of structure on the shoulder. You want something different from them, or, necks and stuff. So horses for courses, I think. Yeah. So that's it. That's a small, but yes, we've got slip stitches, moss stitches, stripes, and shapings, and yes, a myriad.
I mean, obviously we'd talked through sketches and swatches early on, and then we were like, okay, go. And then it was a while, because, knitting takes a little while before we saw finished garments.
Yes.
And I was so blown away. And I was also, I think what I hadn't realized in the sketches is that it really is like a capsule wardrobe, just a very colorful one, not a beige one or a black and white one. And that is then where all the naming inspiration came from, because it's like a piece for all parts of my life.
I think that's maybe in the future what we're bespoking all our stuff now. We make garments for ourselves, we make sweaters for ourselves, and they're always statement pieces because we've made them. And as I said, I believe in full circle design. If you're going to make something, you've got to think about where it's going to end up. I think it's especially true if you're making clothes for children, do them in something that could be, it's nothing new, is it? We were doing that, our grandmothers were doing that as well, ripping things out and back winding, and If it's a good quality yarn, it will work like that. But for having a wardrobe staple, yes, it's got to live in your life. So it's great. You think, oh, do you know what? I'm fed up with that sleeve, or I'll colour block it. I was so tempted. I really wanted to colour block one of these as well, which I still do.
Yeah.
But
Still make that happen,
have the back bit just to be another colour, because it's quite nice. It's an event. We never think about the back because we never.
don't see
got to have
it,
back detail. We don't see it.
Other people do.
But I think it's nice to have a pattern. I'm not saying these are maybe this one becomes one that you will make many times. It's a good one for doing that. You can do that in another colour. And I think too, you bought a coat maybe last year or what, but you want to refresh it. So, Shawls a great way of doing that, or new colours. I mean, put your beautiful scarf there with the, that would immediately be lovely slip stitches and stuff, and those sort of patterns. And it just refreshes. Scarves are so rich for colour for us, and they're just an accessory we can make. So a shawl is a great piece. And tarsia obviously is date night, to be noticed.
Yes.
Who doesn't?
You are not walking in or out of a restaurant or cafe.
It's where I've been going
without
wrong.
someone.
Definitely.
Yeah. So where do you see knitwear going?
Where do I see knitwear going? Well,
what do you think the next trend is?
I hope they're timeless pieces that we make ourselves, that they fit ourselves, and we encourage people to take up knitting and encourage that in themselves, and to ask, okay, where will this end up? What can I convert that to? Somebody was saying, it's Amanda just changed the date night one and already thought about making that into a cardigan. Fabulous, someone else was telling me, their mother sadly had passed away, but had an unfinished piece. And I remember one of my I don't know why it was an inspiration, but I often tell Bella about it. My mother was a voracious knitter, but there was this orange mohair thing on gold needles that sat in the back of the sideboard. It was sort of like a cat, really. When I was little, you'd open it and it was still in there. My mother never finished that. And those UFOs, the unfinished object, or those things, they are lovely. And we sometimes do workshops of that and bringing in things and give it a new lease of life by giving it to somebody else.
I could spend a good year just doing UFOs.
But I think the future, what I am seeing in collections and things now from Paris and Milan, just extraordinary shapes and things and scale of knitwear. And everybody will laugh at them, these reels, and because they're outrageous, because they are capturing headlines, because the couture house or a new emerging designer needs to get noticed. But my God, there's always some good takeaways from it, of where you see it. And it's engineering. We know it's soft engineering. And the patterns we covet and design, Stephen West, who's a complete, he's Lee Bowery as far as I'm concerned, of what he does. And you see these and how they're engineered to shape or be anti-shape, and it's knitwear, so it's always fascinating. So I'm liking, I'm not so much for the mundane now. If you're gonna knit it, make it. Let's have some fun. Let's get it noticed. Why not? It's we can make the 3D shapes. Doesn't matter. It's a sort of piece of clothing, and you can tie it around this way. It's your style. So fashion for me is just very much about finding your own inner voice about it. Colour, your colours. Experimenting a bit, but everybody has that voice. It's just having confidence to put a few bits together and chuck in a pop and take something away. So it's designing is much about taking things away as putting them there. So I can't sort of truthfully answer that, what I think are those trends that I think that they're ourselves. It's what we bring to this wonderful craft and exchange ideas and and buy a new yarn, come and go, oh my God, look at that colour. Oh, got to do that. You know, yeah.
Well, and I think what you said too about fashion, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit in this industry that
Yes, definitely.
we are part of the fashion industry. We see, and I think we talk about it too as if that's another thing, and we're crafters. But
Well, the fashion industry certainly looks at the craft
Well,
industry.
yes.
We're seeing that, and you go, oh my God. But have you done this yourself? We really do ourselves a disservice, because you go into a shop, you know, maybe with your daughter or friend, you go, oh my God, have you seen the, I could knit that. I could do that. You could do that. I could take that. I could do that. You know, but we don't value ourselves enough highly as craftspeople. You know, I think all that will change, but it doesn't matter whether it's some of you may want to be burgeoning designers or, you know, do that. But, you know, as long as you're making for yourself, your family, your loved ones, especially in these troubled times, it just feels nice, that soft armour. You know, you just want to knit that thing and just put it on your loved ones. They live abroad and I just want to keep you safe. And I've got all my love in that piece and it's going to fit you and I'm going to tie the arms tight around you. You know, and that's just keep you safe, you know. So it is a lot of functions, and you know, the fashion industry, the through decisions they had made going to overseas for cheaper goods, everything got debased, everything was become disposable. So we've had 2 generations now where it's quick fix pocket money, isn't it, rather than longevity.
Yeah,
so we've got the answers, I think.
And we do have the answers.
For me, that's no one can trim or pom-pom or embellish like we can.
No. I think we'll keep fighting the good fight.
We'll fight the good fight, absolutely.
with our
Yeah.
knitting needles and yarn.
Yeah, well, it was lovely to have the opportunity to do this with you. You know,
You have no idea. This has been the absolute highlight of my knitting career so far. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Well,
I'm
it's such a
very proud
lovely
of
thing
what
to
we've
say.
produced, and so happy to share it with all of you guys.
Yeah, it's a cool place to do it here.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining me